We have made good progress. We just need to be aware, of course, that that can happen again. Yeah, own package, it's like that.
Listen guys, we are live at Silverstone. Practice wrapped up and sprint qualifying is done. While this weekend is already building its own story on track, the real action is happening off it. Because Austria left a trail of consequences that are still exploding this week. Piastri just spoke publicly about being kicked out of McLaren for Max. Max gave the Paddock his most revealing non-answer of the season about the McLaren rumors. Carlos Sainz is demanding a rule change that started because of Max's crash. Ralf Schumacher issued a warning to Max about leaving that contains a hidden truth most people are missing. And Jean Alesi, a man who raced when people died, went nuclear on the FIA in language so strong it invoked Jules Bianchi. This video covers all of it and connects every thread into the one story Austria actually started. Oscar Piastri walked into the Silverstone media pen on Thursday and was asked whether he is about to be removed from his own team to make room for someone else. His answer was 4 sentences long. He said, "For me, it doesn't mean much. Obviously, Max is the talent he is and is looking around. I'm very happy where I am. I've been told multiple times that the team are happy with me and I trust them." Here is what your audience needs to understand about that response. Piastri did not say the rumors are false. He did not say McLaren has confirmed to him that no talks with Verstappen have happened. He said the team has told him they are happy with him and that he trusts them. There is a meaningful gap between "my team told me they're happy with me" and "my team told me Verstappen is not coming." Piastri is too smart not to know that gap exists. And he handled the question the same way he handles everything, professionally, carefully, and without giving anything away. Zak Brown then tried to close the door with one of the week's most quoted lines. "If I had a third car, I'd sign him in a heartbeat, but I don't have a third car." That is a denial shaped like a compliment. Brown did not say he wouldn't consider moving Piastri, only that he has no spare seat. When Max was asked about the McLaren rumors at Silverstone on Thursday, he said, "I'm not going to involve myself in that. If there's something new or something that changes, you will hear it from me, not from someone else writing it, right?" He also said, "I just focus on the job I have with my team. We are on the way up, so that's really nice to see." Take both statements together and tell me what you hear. He did not deny the talks. He did not confirm them. He positioned himself as the source of any future announcement, which only matters if there is a future announcement to make. A driver with genuinely no intention of leaving just says he's staying. And the conversation ends. Max redirected it toward himself instead. Then there's the race radio moment from Austria that almost nobody covered properly. When his race engineer told him there were yellow flags and double yellows on track, Max came back on the radio and said, "That means flat out, right? Pass the car?" "I'm joking." He turned the most controversial safety incident of his weekend into a dry one-liner while driving at 250 kilometers per hour. That is not a man traumatized by what happened to him in qualifying. That is a man who processed it, filed it away, and moved on before the rest of the paddock stopped arguing. Carlos Sainz arrived at Silverstone this week as director of the GPDA with a proposal. He said, "I think anyone who generates a yellow flag or a red flag in qualifying should receive a 3-place grid penalty." His reasoning connects directly to what happened to Max. A driver pushing flat out at the limit, who pushes too far, prevents rivals from completing their laps even without intending to. Sainz was careful to say Max was not at fault, that his crash came from a rear wing failure, and that Max had no incentive to crash because he was third, not on pole. But Sainz went further. He referenced Monaco and Baku, saying, "I've seen drivers with these thoughts. I could have done it last year in Baku when I was on pole. I said to myself, if I crash now, I'm on pole." We all have these thoughts. That is a GPDA director telling the world that deliberate qualifying manipulation has crossed his mind and that current rules make it thinkable. Verstappen responded and agreed on deliberate cases. If someone does it on purpose, it should be an even bigger penalty than that. But he stressed his larger concern was the flag itself. It should not have been a single yellow. That is at least a double yellow or a red. First of all, that is where Sainz and Max align completely. Russell did nothing wrong. The flag call was the problem. Jean Alesi does not do interviews for headlines. He raced in an era when people died, including Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna in a single Imola weekend in 1994, a weekend Alesi was part of. When Alesi speaks about safety, It comes from a place no current driver or team principal can fully understand. Speaking to Corriere della Sera after Austria, Alesi said, "The race was decided by a qualifying session compromised from the start. Not throwing a red flag with a crashed car sitting at the side of the track makes my hair stand on end. It sends a terrible message to everyone racing in Formula One, especially the younger drivers." Then he invoked Jules Bianchi, the Ferrari junior driver who died in 2015 after colliding with a recovery vehicle under yellow flags at the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix. This isn't about adapting to the race director's approach. It's about demanding that situations like this never happen again. It's as if the tragedy of Jules Bianchi had never happened. Disgraceful. The FIA declined to comment when asked directly. That silence matters. Alesi's invocation of Bianchi is not overreaction. It is a man who watched the sport learn painful lessons in blood, now watching it make a decision that suggests those lessons are fading. The question is whether the FIA responds, or adds this to the paddock noise it has learned to wait out. Ralf Schumacher gave an interview to Sky Deutschland this week that contained something more useful than a prediction. He said, McLaren would probably be interested, but he wouldn't be the #1 driver there like he is at Red Bull. That entire team is built around him. He also wouldn't be a works driver anymore. That last sentence is the one everyone skipped past. At Red Bull, Max drives a car powered by an engine his own team built with Ford, a works power unit, meaning Red Bull's engineers design every component with Max's needs as the priority. At McLaren, he'd run a customer Mercedes engine, with the works team unofficially getting first access to the latest specifications. Ralph added, "Where does he have an entire team built around him? Only at Red Bull, so I'd be careful." That argument lands harder now than 6 months ago, because FIA engine rule changes shifting power back toward combustion. From 2027 mean Red Bull's works advantage is about to matter more. They built the grid's best combustion engine, and the rules are moving toward combustion dominance. Becoming a McLaren customer right as that becomes decisive is not the obvious move it looked like in February, when Mercedes were winning everything and Red Bull couldn't leave the pit lane cleanly. We are at Silverstone on a sprint weekend. One free practice session, sprint qualifying this afternoon, the sprint race tomorrow morning, Grand Prix qualifying tomorrow afternoon, and the race Sunday. Max warned us this was coming. After Austria, he said he did simulator laps of Silverstone and burst out laughing. It felt like a different track. You barely have battery around the lap, it's just constantly flat. He was describing the specific problem Silverstone creates for 2026 cars. Its fast-flowing corners through Maggots and Becketts provide almost no heavy braking zones for the battery to recover energy. So drivers arrive at the long hanger straight with little electrical power left. Austria was gentler on the battery because of its short lap and multiple heavy braking zones. Silverstone is the opposite. Longer lap, fast corners, battery always running low. Mercedes, with their superior hybrid system, should theoretically benefit here more than anywhere else on the calendar. Red Bull's combustion strength alone cannot compensate for a battery that cannot recharge fast enough. This is the track that will tell us honestly whether Austria's step forward was real or a track-specific anomaly. Today's sprint qualifying gives us the first data point before Sunday. One session, then you qualify. The full picture entering Silverstone. Max is 7th in the championship with 73 points. Antonelli leads with 171. Russell is 2nd with 131. Hamilton 3rd with 125. The gap from Max to 2nd is 58 points, with 3 races remaining before the summer break. Britain, Belgium, Hungary. The exit clause activates after Hungary on July 26th, regardless. Red Bull are 4th in the Constructors' Championship. The Austria upgrade halved the gap to the leaders in race pace, from 0.5 a lap to 2 or 3. The GPDA's next formal meeting on Sainz's grid penalty proposal cannot happen this weekend because the sprint format compresses the schedule and removes the dedicated driver's briefing slot where these discussions normally happen. The FIA has still not publicly responded to Alesi's Bianchi comparison. Silverstone's sprint format means Max must extract performance immediately. No second chance in practice, just FP1 this morning and sprint qualifying this afternoon. Historically, it's been one of his strongest circuits. He won there in 2023 and 2024 and hasn't finished outside the top 3 since 2020. Whether 2026's battery management nightmare changes, that history begins this afternoon. Here is the complete picture of everything Austria set off and is now walking through the Silverstone paddock. Piastri defended his seat with 4 sentences that relied on trust rather than certainty. Max deflected the McLaren question by positioning himself as the only reliable source on his own future, which only matters if there is a future to announce. Sainz proposed a rule change triggered directly by what happened to Max's rear wing. Alesi invoked Bianchi and the FIA went quiet. Ralph warned Max that leaving Red Bull means giving up a works engine at the exact moment combustion power is about to matter most. And Max himself, on race radio in the middle of a Grand Prix, turned the entire controversy into a joke and kept driving. Sprint qualifying is happening this afternoon at Silverstone. The race is Sunday. Between now and Hungary on July 26th, every session, result, and radio message builds toward the moment the exit clause formally opens, and Max has to give Red Bull and the world his answer. Subscribe, because this story does not pause between races, and neither do I. The open question Silverstone begins to answer today. Max predicted this track would expose the 2026 cars so badly he laughed in the simulator. If he's right, and it's another battery nightmare, does that make him more likely to stay at Red Bull and trust the 2028 combustion era? Or does a bad weekend remind him why he's been counting to 100 all season long?